The sages often like to use a parable or a story to convey that which words often have difficult times conveying. A story or an image can do a much better job. And in the beginning of Maseches Brachos, they use the parable of a father moaning or mourning the exile of his children. And they teach us with this that Hashem Himself mourns the loss of the Beis HaMikdash, and not just the actual loss of the structure, which we ourselves also mourn during these 3 weeks, but the fact that because of the loss of the home, the children were exiled. And in the words of the Gemara, Hashem Himself says, Oy lebanim, what's going to be with my children? Shehigle me'al shulchan avihem, that they were exiled from the table of their father. And that imagery is a very specific one, and it's a unique one, that we, Hashem Himself mourns, that we were exiled from His table. I would have thought they would just use language of we were kicked out of the house, we were exiled from the palace, but they choose a very specific imagery that we should have, that there was a father sitting at his table alone, and that the father himself mourns that. He moans and he groans daily, the Gemara says, where are my children that I had to exile them because of their actions from my table? And a lot of the commentators point out the idea of a table is a very specific usage that the sages are using. The table represents two things. First, of course, it represents physical sustenance. You sit around the table and you eat. It's where you're nourished. It's where you become strong from the food that you're eating. But more so, the table also represents a spiritual nourishment, emotional nourishment. The table represents the place where a family can sit around and connect. It's where bonds are deepened. It's where values are conveyed. It's where weekly events are discussed. A family at a table has an opportunity to develop a relationship that without those moments, and as many of us have experienced, it doesn't often last very long, especially with young children and they're gone, playing, doing whatever they're doing. But it's those moments where a family can sit at a table and the connections are strengthened. And Hashem Himself says, He mourns, my children are not at my table. I don't have the ability to take care of them physically in the way that I could or should if they would be here with me. And I can't emotionally and spiritually connect. And one of the things that we mourn during these 3 weeks is the idea that not just that we're not at the table, but that we recognize Hashem Himself grieves the fact that we are not at His table. And the first step to yearning to return is recognizing that image of what it is that we don't have.